Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Catching Zeez podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. I'm sure you know him. He creates content on both Owl House and Amphibia. Say hello to Zeez G2. Hey guys, it's me, Zeez G2. Thank you, Zeez G3, for having me on the podcast. It's honestly a really big honor getting to come onto the podcast. Since we're the same person, do you mind if I call you 3? Sure, that's fine. Do you mind if I call you 2? Yeah, I think that works fine. So, I'm sure our viewers might be a little bit confused as to why I am talking to another version of myself. Well, that is because all of my friends are quite busy today. Emmy, the Little Rookie, and Racecar627, the 3 guests that I've had on this podcast before, they're all busy today, which is a bit unfortunate, but you know, scheduling conflicts do exist, but I still want to have a podcast every week that I am able to. That sure is some commitment you got there, 3. Thank you, 2. I appreciate that. Yes, I try very hard. Alright, I'm done with that bit, but yeah. Everybody, I'm here solo today. A bit unfortunate, but you know, what can you do? So, I guess we can just kind of ramble and talk about whatever we want to today, since I don't really have anybody to bounce off of. I guess we can start by talking about what I've been up to recently. Well, it's basically been the same old, just doing editing and whatnot. But I want to kind of discuss the things that I've always wanted to do, even though I never really have the time to do them. So, one big thing that I've been working on recently, I talked about this in the last podcast, is the Owl House art contest, which is a very, very big video that takes a lot of time. And what I'm putting together, I said in the last podcast, is basically an objectively bad video when it comes to YouTube, right? I've been doing a lot of research into YouTube the past few months and looking at like what content performs well. And when I look at this art contest and I just kind of like listen to my shallow like one-note commentary that just goes on for hours and hours and hours, I get extremely demotivated while I'm making that video. So it's a bit unfortunate, but the project is about 95% done. I have a little more editing to do, still waiting on a couple responses from some of the artists, and just a few other little things I gotta clean up here and there, but it should be out within the next few days is what I'm really, really hoping for. Actually, after this podcast, I'm gonna have a ton of time to edit, which is what I need to start wrapping up. That's like the biggest part that I need to start wrapping up at the contest, but I don't think I'm going to be doing one like this for a while. And the main reason because of that is not so much the lack of motivation, which is actually massively huge. I guess that is probably a big one of it, but it's also the massive, massive time commitment. As I grow older, with every passing year, I feel more and more like I'm accomplishing less and less. Now, this is kind of sad, but I have really, how do I put this? I don't manage my time as well as I would like to, but I really think carefully about my time. I value my time, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I very much value my time. I am always like multitasking if possible, and I take breaks obviously like when I do work and whatnot, but I'm pretty much trying to always optimize the best way to use my time. Because I want to just develop more skills and talents, just to better myself as a person, right? I think everybody wants to better themselves. I think that's just a natural human thing to want to better yourself every single day. And some of the things that I have always really looked down on myself for, especially I guess always. It's not so drastically, I don't feel it as drastically as much anymore, but when I was younger, I had a lot of friends who had some really, really cool talents, and I always felt jealous of them because the only thing that I really knew how to do was play video games. You know, when it came to friend groups that I had growing up all through elementary, through high school, I was the guy who was good at video games, and that was about it. You know, if you wanted to talk about somebody who was, or if you wanted to talk about video games to somebody, I was the guy to talk to. If you wanted to, like, you know, play Smash Bros, I was always the one that you had to beat because I was always the one who tried the hardest at those games. And I mean to be brag, but you know, I was pretty decent. I don't think I'm incredible at video games, especially when you consider like top level players, speedrunners, and whatnot. But I think I'm okay, you know? I think I'm at, like, probably slightly above average skill, I would think. You know, but, you know, gaming is also getting bigger and bigger, so the people who invest more time into gaming solo, you know, can get much better than me, which is, you know, just a thing. You know, practicing and experience makes you develop skills and talents, which is something that I have always really wanted to call my own, is that I don't really feel like I own any talent. Right? You know, you could argue like making videos is a talent, or like, you know, entertaining an audience is a talent, but I don't really feel that that's really a talent, at least that I have mastered. Like, there's still a lot more that I can do with it, right? I feel like I'm just only scratching the surface, even though I've been doing YouTube for 4 years and I've been watching YouTube all my life. So I've, you know, been able to take everybody else's content and ideas that I've watched growing over the years and adapt that into my, you know, style that I do my own videos with. Like how I started doing Let's Plays when I first started doing YouTube. That was like my main content. I loved doing Let's Plays, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, but Let's Plays were like the classic type of content that I would always used to watch on YouTube, and it doesn't really perform well anymore, but I still like making them because, you know, I just do. And I talked about this, again, in previous episodes, how I'm going to do it less and less because it is not worth the time. But going back to like time management and like focusing on skills, I just know that I had a friend in elementary school. I don't really know him too well anymore, but we were really, really close, and we kind of drifted apart as we got into middle school, which, you know, is natural for friendships to do as you grow older. But we were like thick as thieves. We were super, super close, and it's hard to explain because I've always been a very envious person. I still, to this day, I think I'm an extremely envious person. I think that is like, if we're talking like 7 deadly sins, that's definitely the sin. That sounds so cringe. That's definitely the one that I relate to the most, though, is like I'm very envious of other people, and it kind of also makes me like hate myself for being so envious. But back to what I was talking about. This friend of mine, he was just like a triple threat. He was so good at like everything that he did. He was a straight A student. He took Taekwondo. He was like a super musical genius. He could play like 4 different instruments. Like in 5th grade, I was like, he was in 5th grade and he could like play the piano, the violin, the flute, and like one other one. I don't even remember. But he was like super good at like everything that he did. I think the only thing that he wasn't very good at was like athletics. He was just average. You know, he wasn't good, but he was just like average. Whereas with me, I think like athletics, at least up until like high school, I was just, you know, I didn't really care. I think my athletics were like slightly above average. Actually, I think I was really good at athletics back in elementary school, because I would always used to compete with like my older sister, so that probably gave me a bit of an edge. I feel like when it came to like middle school especially, I definitely fell off. I became a lot more like just average across the board. Like, let's say it's like a video game, right? I have to compare it to a video game, and you got like a skill tree, right? You can like invest your points in this, or you invest your points in this. Like I can invest my points in studying and intelligence and increasing my academic smarts, except I didn't really do that too much throughout school. My grades weren't bad up until my senior year. My senior year of high school was actually really, really bad, and probably like one of the most depressing periods of my life. But you know, my middle school, I got all A's and B's. And then through freshman year to junior year, it was all still A's and B's. And then in senior year, it was really bad. I don't want to get into too much in detail, but it was bad. Let's just say that. Let's just say I was lucky to pass. That sounds bad. I would have had to take a summer school. Obviously, it would just be like 3 months. But still, it would not have been good. But, you know, there are a lot of things that were happening in my life during that senior year, which I don't care to make public. But what I'm talking about really is, you know, as I grew older, I feel like my stat points were all just invested into like video games. And that was really it. You know, I spent a lot of my days really just doing very small amounts of things. Like if I wasn't doing schoolwork or Boy Scouts, which I will talk about Boy Scouts later in this podcast because I love Boy Scouts, I was playing video games, you know, or I was reading like comic books, like mangas, like the Four Swords manga, Zelda mangas. It was usually just everything to do with video games, right? I didn't really get into anime until I was older, but you know, it was always video games, man. And I actually used to be super embarrassed about liking video games. Like whenever you would, get together with a group, whether it be in class or some other social circle, and everybody has to share like a fun fact about yourself or like what your hobbies are. I would never say video games, because every time, this is back when video games, I shouldn't say back when, they were already like changing during this time, but like, whenever you hear somebody say that they like video games, it's just like, oh, okay, so you like video games. That means you're not smart. That's what a lot of people would, stereotype it as. Like, if you play video games, you're wasting your life away playing these games. You're probably a very like aggressive person or whatever, and you're just not very smart because you're wasting all day playing video games when you could be studying, you could be enhancing your other skills. And that's why I never really told anybody that I did that. Obviously, that was with newer people. When I was with my friends, I didn't really care, right? I did not really care, what I said to them, because they knew. Obviously, I can't hide anything from them. They knew that I was just the video game guy. And I do recall there was this one time in Boy Scouts that actually, I think this is probably the very first time I started feeling really, really bad about my hobby playing video games, was when we were trying to make our own ropes, right? So in Boy Scouts, you could tie like little things together to make a rope, and then you'd burn the end of the rope on a candle and it would like fuse. I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but I remember there was this one point that I actually just felt so bad because I messed up, and the candle wax, I accidentally spilled it all over my hand, and it hurt really, really badly. And one of my friends jokingly made fun of me and was like, "Oh, it's because you're not good at anything. All you know about anything is video games." And I kind of just like played it around as a joke, because like I kind of made that joke myself. But hearing it from like another person was like, "Oh, haha, I'm such a failure because all I do is play video games all day." It kind of hurt. It really did. I never mentioned anything at the time, but that was that was just like not a fun experience for me. And I feel like, as I've grown older, part of me like regrets playing all those video games and not focusing on developing any real talents, because it's something that I like even to this day, like not nearly as much, right? This is something that like probably in my late teens I was super self-conscious of. I think probably senior year was my senior year of high school was when I was the most self-conscious of myself, because I had no real skills. In my senior year, I didn't get accepted to any like prestigious colleges. I had to go to community college, and I didn't even get accepted until late into the summer as like a backup plan. And it felt really bad when I was taking all these smart classes. Like I took a lot of AP classes. I took like 5 AP classes, and I had like a bunch of extracurricular activities alongside with Boy Scouts. I had a pretty packed schedule, but I stretched myself too thin, and like everything, just came kind of crumbling down, which sucked, But it was during that time when I saw all of the peers around me like getting accepted at these like really awesome schools. A couple of my friends actually literally went to like MIT and Stanford, which for those who don't know are very prestigious colleges in the United States of America. So that was really impressive for them. But I think it was if we're still talking on the like freaking senior year, specifically, I think the day that I hated myself more than any other day was the day of graduation on senior year. I think that day was like one of the worst days of my life, actually, because everybody around me was filled with so much happiness for the future, and all I could do was lie. All I had to do was just lie to everybody, because at this point, my family didn't know about what my grades were. None of my friends did. The only person who knew was me, and I guess my teachers. So when we were like sitting up in these lines, we got, they gave you specific things that you would put on your little graduation robe. You would get like these 2 little ties if you graduated with academic and technical honors. For those who don't know, there's academic honors and there's technical honors, which are 2 like extra things that you can graduate with that look just better on a report card. There's certain things that you have to do to achieve said things, and I was on track to completing both, but because my grades suffered in that senior year, I didn't achieve either of them. But they didn't take it away from me during the like show, like the show part of graduation. Obviously, on my diploma, I didn't get them because I just barely graduated, but I still had them. So like everybody was congratulating me, being like, "Oh, you got both. You're graduating with both. That's so cool." And I was like, "Hey, yeah, I'm graduating with both." It was awful, and I think one of the worst things was we had a more than one valedictorian. We had several, actually, and my school was like kind of big-ish. We had multiple valedictorians make speeches, and I swear, every single one of those speeches made me want to cry, dude. And not because like it was tears of joy, but it was tears of just like, I hate this. Like, I hate myself so much, because they're all just like talking about the future, and they would use the words "we" so much. Like, they kept saying like, "Oh, we are the future. We take our own destiny into our own hands. We are the class of whatever, and we will show the world who we are." And I'm like, what do you mean we? I'm not part of this. I suck. I'm not doing anything. I have no future. That's how I felt right at that time. I felt like I had no future at all, which is kind of what led me into doing content creation. So it's another reason why I don't like completely regret it, because I think like if I did go off into a prestigious college, I wouldn't have gone on the YouTube route. Now, I think I definitely would have made YouTube content, but I don't think it would have turned out like this, because somewhere down the line, I probably would have been like, I'm going to focus on my career, do less YouTube. It would be more of a hobby, right? And I would still be like making Let's Plays with like maybe 300 subscribers, if that. But, you know, that was a bit of a tough point in my life, and that dread from that graduation day lasted for so long. I actually had a good amount of friends that I met in senior year, like specifically senior year, and I actually got invited to like 8 different graduation parties, which was pretty cool. It was funny. My little sister got invited to like 20 because she's like a huge social butterfly, but I thought 8 was a lot at the time, and then she got invited to like 20. I was like, what? But I felt really bad, but I only went to 2 of them. And this sucks because this is actually the last time that I'd probably ever see any of these people ever again. And I remember I just like specifically emailed several of these people, and I was like, hey, sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it because of this. And I think like only one of them was legit. I think the other 5 are like a lie. The only 2 that I went to were like 2 really, really close friends. And I wanted to go to the other ones, but I was just so embarrassed and so ashamed, because like I felt like I just didn't belong at all, because I was like the biggest failure, right? Like I see all these successful people standing around me, and it just made me feel so inferior, and it just like built up that envy so much, because I was like, these people are so much better than me. And I just kind of think like, what if I just didn't play video games? What if I just studied harder, worked harder, instead of like using any free time that I had to play video games? And, you know, it makes me think back, not just to my senior year of high school, but every single year before. It's like, what could I have done better if I wasn't just playing video games, right? And I always did have like other passions outside of video games, but I never really pursued them to like any major degree. I think the biggest one was definitely Boy Scouts, for sure. Because like that, I actually even wanted to quit Boy Scouts as well. When I got into Boy Scouts, I was 11 years old, which is when you cross over from Cub Scouts to Boy Scouts. And I didn't actually want to join it. I was too obsessed with like the friends that I had at school. Specifically like one friend that I had, who was that one I was talking about earlier, who was like super talented. And I eventually was just like, you know what? Scouts isn't for me. I don't want to do it. Especially with like Cub Scouts, there was like Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts were pretty drastically different, at least where I was living. And I still think they are pretty different, but I just wasn't really feeling it, you know? I didn't really know anybody there. I knew like 3 people. Everybody was a new face. A lot of the older scouts were very like aggressive, like sports bros, and they just weren't really, you know, somebody I could get along with. So my dad, at the time, he was like, you know what? Let's make a deal. Because he really wanted me to like be in this extracurricular, because I was in no extracurriculars at the time. And he was like, here's the deal. Do it for 1 year. Do it for a single year, and then if you still want to leave, I'll be fine with that. You know, he said just try it for a year. I want you to be an extracurricular. Just go for it and like see if it's all right. Like see if you end up liking it. And you know, at the time I was like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll do the year and I'll just drop out free. But you know, during that year I had lots of things happen to me. One major thing is I stopped being friends with that person that I was friends with in elementary school. You know, we just had like, not really a fight, but we just weren't able to be friends anymore, I guess. I don't want to like really go into it too much, but you know, we stopped being pals, and at that time he was with the rest of our friends, and it kind of felt awkward for me to like all be in this friend group where like 2 of us just never really could talk to one another. So I was outcast from that friend group. He got to stay with everybody else, so I had to completely make new friends going into 6th grade. Because this happened in between 5th and 6th grade. The same time as like we were transitioning into Boy Scouts. And I had like no friends in school after that, and I had no friends in Boy Scouts. So I basically had no friends in my 6th grade, which really sucked. You know, I think there were like a few people that I would like, you know, call acquaintances. There were people that I could get along with, but nobody that I'd be like calling on the phone or talking to outside of like school or Boy Scouts, right? And that was a really sad time for a while. I just had no friends. But you know, as life happens, you do eventually make more friends. As I got to stay in Boy Scouts longer, you know, I did slowly develop into making more friends. So that was really cool. But I was actually seen as the quiet kid, I think for like my first, I want to say 2 years, probably a year and a half. No, probably a year and a half, I'd say. My first year and a half of Boy Scouts, I was seen as the quiet kid. I would barely talk. I would just barely talk at anything. The only people I'd really talk to was this older scout named Tommy. He was so cool, dude. He was like, he was basically, I guess, like my one reason for staying in Scouts, because he was like probably one of my first idols, I guess, because he was just, you know, he was kind of like my other friend. He was just really, really good at everything, but he also recognized like social outcasts, I guess, because I was kind of a social outcast at the time, and he really helped me out. You know, he like took me to different places with him, like when we were on camping trips. He'd let me hang out with him, and like he would, I shouldn't say he would ignore his friends, but like he would, you know, hype me up, basically be like, yo, this guy Zeez, he's so cool, like he's a little quiet, but like he can do this, he does this. And that was just like an awesome time, and I really appreciate that. And you know, through Tommy, you know, he got me like more and more into Boy Scout because he was super passionate about it. And I mentioned this on a previous podcast, but one of the greatest things to connect to just any type of activity or hobby or anything is to have somebody, like a person to connect with and help you like connect to that thing. And for that, it was probably like Tommy and, you know, a couple other the scouts that I had in there as well. There were a couple other friends, but like this older scout, Tommy, who was like 3 years older than me, he was definitely like one of the biggest factors into me staying there. And like all the younger scouts loved Tommy, dude. He was so cool. He was like kind to everybody. He was kind of sassy to some adults and older scouts, but for the most part, like he took care of like the younger scouts so much. He was just like really, really, really such a nice guy. And you know, I eventually became friends with like his little brother too when he joined in Scouts. And you know, just going on campus, because how our troop did it, we went on campouts every single month, right? And like every single month there would be a different theme. For example, you know, January would be a winter themed campout. February would be something else. March would be, we'd go into a cave. We'd literally go into caves, which was awesome. February, I already said February. April, we would do like outdoor activities, like we'd practice archery, we'd practice tomahawk throwing, blow darts, etc. And then, you know, there were just different campouts throughout the months. And my favorite one, which I think any Boy Scout's favorite one is summer camp. Summer camp is a week-long trip where you go to a specific campsite and you're there for a week and you work on merit badges. Merit badges are things that you need to like rank up through Boy Scouts, and it also teaches you like lots of cool life skills. Like even if it's just like at a somewhat minor level, it at least gets you into a lot of these different topics and you know, different things, which is so cool. And I think you need like, I forget off the top of my head, but you need like 20 specific merit badges to become an Eagle Scout, and then you need like 40 miscellaneous. I don't think you need 40. I think it's like maybe a total of 50 that you need, maybe even 40. I actually don't remember. It's been a bit. But I know there's like at least like somewhere between 15 to 20 that you like guarantee need to become an Eagle Scout, which is pretty cool. So like everybody, you know, kind of goes through those same ones. And, you know, as you like rank up, you like learn more just about so many different things. And my very first, I think my very first summer camp was when I knew that I wanted to keep doing Boy Scouts. I was like still considering it before that time, but you know, this is like around the time that I would like, I was getting closer to Tommy and he was introducing me to like other people. I was starting to meet more and more friends because, you know, when you're out with a troop with like, you know, 20 people, for example, you know, troops in Boy Scouts vary by size, but ours was like decently big. I think we had around like always between like 30 to 40 active members. So let's say there was like 25 people at this summer camp. You're gonna eventually connect with some people, especially the ones that are at your age. And there are a lot of younger scouts there. Like pretty much each like age group is like less and less as it goes higher, right? Like, so let's say you have like 8 11-year-olds, 7 12-year-olds, and then by the time you get to like 17, there's like maybe 1 or 2 guys that are 17, because most of the time a lot of people, what they would like to do, if they don't get Eagle, you have to get Eagle before you turn 18. That's kind of how it works. I was actually pretty close before getting to my Eagle Scout. I actually only had like 3 months left. I had the opportunity to get it done when I was 16, but my project kept falling through, which really sucks. I'll talk about that another day. But I got it, which was pretty cool. You know, it's one of my biggest achievements, honestly. That's probably like the only achievement that's like written down on paper or whatever that I can say is like something that I achieved that's really cool. I don't really have any like, you know, things from school like diplomas or whatever, like extracurriculars that be like, yo, Zeez did this because he's the coolest guy in the world. No, all I have is like the Eagle Scout, and that's really it. But it was so cool because my experience through Boy Scouts, I think was just very, very, I don't want to say it was like unique, but I could definitely tell that the group that we made in Boy Scouts was very, very special. Because you know how I was saying earlier, you know, the older, you know, the kids got, the less and less like active age groups would be there. Like how I said, you know, maybe there's like 2 guys who are 17. You know, most of the kids are probably like 11 through 14. 14 through 17 is like so much smaller. But so many of the scouts through my specific like age group, we all connected with each other so well that like by the time that we were 16 and 17, we were still like all in the troop, mostly. Like, you know, there was a few guys who fell out, but you know, I would argue that like from the, you know, when I joined, when there were only like, you know, a handful of 16 to 17 people, there were like probably 3 or 4 times as many, because we all basically promised to each other that we're all gonna get Eagle. I know specifically, there was this very stormy day. I was doing a small boat sailing merit badge, or we are supposed to, but it was storming out, so we couldn't. So I was working on my basket weaving merit badge, where I had to like, you know, weave little strings in between this little setup to make a basket, which I actually still have said baskets, actually. They're at my old house, but I remember I was working on those with like 3 other kids, and it was like super, super stormy, and one of the kids goes like, hey, are you guys like in this for the long run? Like, are you guys gonna aim to be Eagle Scouts? And this is the time where I was still kind of uncertain, but the other 2 guys were like, yeah, I want to be an Eagle Scout. Like, we're totally gonna do this. And you know, I was sitting there with them. I was like, yeah, I mean, it would be really, really cool to be an Eagle Scout. And, you know, these kids were probably a lot more passionate about it than I was at the current time. But like that passion really rubbed off on me. And, you know, we were like helping each other with our baskets, even though it was like super, super stormy. We were under like, you know, a bit of a, you know, freaking little building, but it was like, there was no walls or anything. But we were all just like working under there, slightly wet, while just trying to weave together these baskets in this storm while we couldn't go small boat sailing. And, it was just such a nice memory, because that's like one of the very first times where I realized, I was like, yeah, I actually want to go, for this whole Eagle Scout thing. And it's funny is the 4 of us, we actually all kept our promises. All 4 of us there at that time, we all got Eagle Scout, and we were all pretty active. There was one guy who was like, you know, here and there, but we all eventually did get our Eagle Scouts, which is really cool. And like, you know, that group started at like 4, and then like we probably combined with another group, we became like 8. And I think, you know, throughout my like early high school days, when I was like 14, 15, 16, and even like to now, I don't really talk to them as much as I would like to, but there was this really, really close group of friends that I had. I think there were probably like, I think in the core group, there were probably like 6 of us, maybe like 5 to 6 of us, and then like there was some other guys in there, so it was probably like a group of 10, but like, you know, the core of us was probably like, I'd say 6, and then like a few years later, it dropped down to like, I'd say like 4 or 5 of us. But we had a pretty tight-knit group there for a long time. And, you know, as we were like getting into like our school system started combining a little bit more, some of the friends that I met in Boy Scouts, I actually ended up going to high school with. So it was cool when I had classes with them. And I was like, hey, I already know you because you're in my freaking Boy Scout trip. And we've been friends for like 3 years. It was so cool. And it made me really enjoy like my school days more, because throughout middle school, especially, I had no friends throughout middle school. I think I can name like 4 people I was friends with in middle school. One of them is actually the little rookie who's been on the podcast before. So that's cool. he and I met in, I believe, 6th grade? Yeah, 6th grade, which is a little funny because he actually doesn't remember us meeting in 6th grade. I think he remembers meeting me either in freshman year or 8th grade, but we met in 6th grade and we became friends in a specific, I think it was like English class or whatever. We were reading a book and we would like trade our books and draw little comics in them. It was so fun. I'll have to ask if he specifically remembers that, because I don't think he does. He says he was like very sleep deprived back then and has like really, really bad memory of those times, which seems a bit of an odd cop out, but whatever. I'm sure he can remember if he tries hard enough. Anyway, that's besides the point. What I was saying is I basically had no friends throughout middle school. In 8th grade, it was a little better. I started meeting a few more people, and I just didn't really connect with the people at school. They all were into different things than I was, but it was Boy Scouts where I really had, that solid foundation of like a friend group, which is something that I really needed at the time because, we would have like troop meetings once a week, but you go to school every single day. So it's like, I would rather have it be the opposite where, I have all these friends at school and then maybe at the freaking Boy Scout meetings, I don't know everybody as well. But, I don't know. I just think back to like those middle school days, and I think that's another reason why I played so many video games, because I had no friends. I had nobody to really connect with at all. So a lot of the time I would just sit at home playing video games. That's really what I did. My main extracurricular, outside of 8th grade when I did track, I didn't do anything. I just played video games and went to Boy Scouts. That was really it. And thinking back to those days, I almost wonder like what would have happened like if I had friends in school that would have got me into like other extracurriculars. I actually did do an extracurricular in 8th grade that wasn't just track, but it was also called like accelerated singing. I don't want to say the actual name of it because I think it would dox the school, but it was like a singing program that choir students would go into, and we were basically like the good singers, I guess, which is what I thought I was. So I was in like this, I'm just gonna say elite singers, to make it easier. It's definitely not that, but let's just say it's elite singers for just like, a random group name. And I was in this group and we would like go on little performances every here and there. It wasn't anything really prestigious, but we got to like go in early to the school, learn some extra songs and whatnot. But I kind of felt bad. I was really proud of that when I was younger. I was like, oh, I can sing. And, when I look back at like all those DVDs of our performances, whenever I had like a solo moment or whatever, I sucked. I'm extremely tone deaf. I've realized that as I've gotten older, but I'm extremely tone deaf. And the reason, which is so sad to say, but the reason why I got into this accelerated singing program and the reason why I got multiple solos wasn't because I was good at singing, but because I was one of the only people who tried. Everybody else in choir, because choir in my middle school, it was like the joke extracurricular, because if you didn't want to try and learn how to play an instrument, then you would just take choir, right? I specifically tried to get into piano class, but I didn't get in. I tried all 3 years, and every single year they drew names out of like a hat or something, and my name was never drawn all 3 years, so that sucked. And looking back on it, I really wish I played violin back then, because I really want to learn how to play the violin now, which is something I am trying to learn how to play, so more on that later. Is there a helicopter? Dude, there's a helicopter passing by over my apartment. Sorry. But I did choir because I tried to do trombone for like 30 days, and I didn't go to the summer camp. I think I mentioned this on the podcast too. I didn't go to the summer camp, so I was super behind everybody, and I dropped out eventually. I was like, I'm just going to go to choir. And from there, I just like joined that Accelerated Voices program, and I thought I was a good singer, but in all honesty, I was really bad. I would like practice singing with other people, and I was always so bad, bro. I didn't even know how to read music. I didn't know how to read music at this time. And like everybody else did, I literally just like copied what everybody else was doing, because I didn't know what the actual melodies were. I didn't know how to read music. I like kind of knew. I was like, okay, this one's a bit higher. This one probably sounds like this, because I had like just pattern recognition. But I actually didn't know how to like specifically read music outside of like the most basic like treble clef or whatever. I don't even know, bro. I still can't even read music to this day, which is kind of sad. And I felt like I was special because I was like in this accelerated program, and only come to realize I was only in it because I was one of the only people who tried, because the choir was the joke class and nobody else tried. Because I tried, I got into the accelerated program, And it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks to realize that. I realized that probably in my freshman year, because like my siblings and friends would always joke and be like, yo, you're so bad at singing, actually. Like, it's actually genuinely bad. And I was like, oh, you're just messing with me. And then I listened back to it and I was like, ugh, this is garbage, bro. Oh, it's so bad. And I had a really bad like falsetto. I could never switch from my deeper voice to my higher voice. I was always so bad at it, bro. There's a specific video that I cringe every time I see it because there is a level of volume or like level of pitch that I need to be, and it sounds like two different people because I'm like singing like this and then I'm singing like this, and it's like it's so cringe to listen to because it sounds like I'm two different people. And I've never been good at transitioning from the high to the low. I've been awful at it, bro. I can never do it. And I've been self-conscious about that ever since. I do hum a lot to help myself focus. This is something that I do naturally. I don't even notice that I do it. It's really embarrassing. And sometimes I'll hear myself humming and I'm like, wow, I suck. I'm super tone deaf. And sometimes I'll be like listening to a song and then I'll hum it later and I'll be like, I'll like try to hum the melody of it, but I just can't. Like I know what it is in my head and I try and repeat it and I just can't do it because I'm tone deaf. I'm so bad at singing. And I just didn't realize that throughout that entire time, which was really unfortunate. And it just like, you know, when I did realize that, it just made me feel even worse about myself. I was like, I invested all this time into trying to be a better singer when the whole time I was just garbage. I especially realized it because I did take choir in my freshman year of high school. And when they started doing solo practices for us, which we never really did when we were younger, we'd kind of just like practice as a group. And then when there was a solo, you just sing it. And then they just didn't really care. But when we got into high school, it was far more prestigious. They took it a lot more seriously. And when I had solo performances, when I actually had to like read music and whatnot, I was just like, I was so bad, bro. Like the teacher kept being like, you know, it's supposed to be like this, right? And I was like, sorry, I'm just having an off day or whatever. It was just really unfortunate. And there was this guy, it was so funny. In my freshman choir class, I was actually paired, because we got paired with older choir student. Every freshman was paired with like a choir, like an older choir student. And the guy who I was paired with was the son of the director. And he was like extremely passionate, right? Because he obviously like grew up with his father and whatnot, who loved choir. And he was mega passionate. He had super high expectations for me, which was really sad because I sucked. And when it came time to like select classes for next year, we had to like turn them in or whatever. We had to like pass all our forms to the right, and he sat to the right of me. So when I passed on my form that didn't have choir on it, he looked at it and was like, "Where's choir?" And I felt so embarrassed. But you know when you get those hot flashes of embarrassment? That's what I was like. I was like, no, my worst fear. He actually looked at it. He's like, "Where's choir? Aren't you doing choir next year?" Like he really thought I was doing choir because I never told him I didn't want to. Because I'm a not confrontational person, dude. I will hide things and lie to never reveal my true feelings. Even though that's exactly what I'm doing right now. But you know, that's what I used to do a lot, like in high school, I guess. And even still to an extent now, but again, nowhere near as much. I've grown up. But you know, I just didn't want to like tell this guy because he was so passionate about it and I just didn't want to let him down. Like his student. Like imagine you're like the son of the director and you're mega passionate and your student is just like, nah, bro, I don't wanna. And it's just like, that's gotta be awful. So what I did is I said, oh, sorry, my dad wants me to take these classes instead, but I really want to take choir. And he's like, well, you shouldn't let your dad do this. What he did, he erased one of my electives and put choir down instead. It was so funny, dude. So later I had to go to like the counselor's office and be like, listen, I was in a bit of predicament. Please switch it back. I don't want to take choir because I suck. And it was so sad because so many of the people in choir, I don't know why. This is probably one of the weirdest things. They wanted me back. I had a pretty close friend who was in choir, and there was this guy who was in my Japanese class. I think he was a junior. He helped me out a lot in my first year of Japanese throughout high school. He wanted me back, and the director's son wanted me back. They would always like come into my class and pester me, be like, yo, you should come back and join choir. You should come back and join choir. And I was like, why? Why do you want me? I'm trash. Like, you've heard me sing before. I'm garbage. And it was just like, I guess they just wanted, somebody that they knew to join in with them and have fun with them in choir. But I think it was also because I was never really honest with them. I never really mentioned that I didn't want to do choir anymore. I was just kind of like, well, I'm trying to focus on this. My dad wants me to do that, which the whole, like, my parents wanted me to do thing was a lie. My parents let me take whatever I wanted. but it was just like, it kind of just was a little bit weird. Thinking back on it now, that there were like 3 different people that would bug me throughout my sophomore and junior year, not so much my senior year, because I was like, I don't think I had any classes with any of them, and 2 of them had already graduated by that point. But like in sophomore year, especially, and even till junior year, I was just like always asked like, yo, you should join choir, and I was like, why do you want me? I'm garbage. And it's just, again, it kind of emphasizes the sadness of like not having any like skill or talent to call your own, because everybody wants like, you know, a skill or like a talent that they can be like, yeah, I can do this. And, you know, all my life I've never been able to say that, right? You know, throughout Boy Scouts, as I got older, I started like forming a lot of connections with a lot of people there. I think I was probably the most active scout. I went to every camp out, every single meeting, every single special event, and I don't want to brag, but like I was decently popular in the troop, you know? I think it was mainly because I went to everything, though. There's a psychology thing called the mere exposure effect, where if you are exposed to a person more and more and more and more, you're going to like find yourself like subconsciously getting closer to them. And I'm pretty sure that's kind of what it was, because like people saw that I was always there. Like if they were going to go to a camp out or a meeting, Zeez was going to be there, right? So it was like, obviously, I'm going to be able to get to know a lot of people, hence why, you know, I would be quote unquote popular. I don't think I actually was. Again, it was just a bunch of goofballs hanging around, and I just happened to know so many of them because I was active. It wasn't because of like I had charisma or anything. I know that for sure because I'm extremely awkward IRL. I think a lot of YouTubers are. But throughout Boy Scouts, since I didn't really have any talents like a lot of the other kids did, even though I was like quote unquote popular, again, I was the funny guy. All right, I was the funny guy. I was never the butt of the joke guy. That was another guy named Gerg, which I could talk about another time. He was one of the people that I was in a close-knit friend group with. I even made a freaking game where I made fun of him. I put his face on like little enemies. I called it Gerg Enders. It was very, very funny. I made fun of Gerg all the time. He was like the butt of the joke guy. But I was like I should say the main funny one, but I was just seen as a funny guy, right? Like, you know, you would have like this guy who's like, oh, this guy's really good at this, or this guy's really good at that. And then when they looked at me, they're like, oh, Zeez, you're funny. Like, that's what he would say. He's like, oh, you're funny, you know, because I would just always be there. And I think that's probably the main reason I would say it's funny, is because like, what else are they supposed to say? And, you know, you're nice, you're funny, you're kind. Like, that's like the main like 3 most basic compliments that you can give a person, because there was nothing actually like, I should say special, I guess, because everybody wants to be special, right? But, you know, there was nothing like that made me stand out. It was just the fact that I was there so much. I was just active more than any other person in this troop, which is, again, another thing of like putting all my eggs into a basket, where my main extracurricular was Boy Scouts. But at the same time, all the other kids in there were always doing like other things as well. Like they were doing like marching band or you know, being in a different extracurricular, whereas like I was only in Boy Scouts. That's why I was like so active in it. But, you know, at the same time, while I was doing one extracurricular for a lot of time, my friends are doing like 3 to 4 extracurriculars and, you know, pushing themselves and working even harder. And I was just like, wow, now I just feel even worse about myself. I've just always had disappointment in myself for just not having any real skills. And to this day, besides like basic editing and like basic video editing, I can do that pretty fast. I don't really have any real skills. I don't have any like good social skills. In fact, I'm extremely terrified of like most social interactions. Don't have any like arts and crafts based talents. You know, I have like very, very low level art skills. Like I can draw Kirby pretty well. That's about it. I can draw characters to a recognizable degree, but they usually look pretty wobbly and ugly. I don't have any musical talent. I can't read music, and I just don't have any like other skills. And that like really bothered me, you know, throughout all my life. And I say it's really bothered me as like past tense, but it still does. You know, that's why I've always wanted to like learn how to do more things. And we're coming full circle kind of to where I started at the beginning of this, where I wanted to talk about, you know, time management and whatnot, and how I wanted to invest my time into like other things as well, where it comes to like having all these YouTube channels, right? Because like I want to do content on all the YouTube channels that I have, all like 5 of them or whatever. And it's difficult because as you increase the quality of every video, it takes longer to work on. And that also means less content throughout lots of the channels, meaning that it's going to perform worse and worse in the algorithm. And that just becomes more and more difficult when you want to even build your skills on top of that. It's like kind of, where does it end? right? Because I don't really have a social life. I don't really get out of my house too often. I think like of the 18 hours that I'm awake each day, I think like 14 of it goes into YouTube, and then the other 4 hours is like miscellaneous, like either working on something, grinding in a video game, taking a break, or eating. That's probably what it is. So if I do 14 hours of YouTube per day, you know, give or take like a few hours, how the heck am I supposed to have time for anything else, right? And I've rejected it so many like outings with friends because I'm like, oh, I have to work on this, or it's like, oh, I'm super behind on videos, I gotta do this instead. And there were just so many instances of that, and I just like, it kind of sucks because as you want to build your skills more and more, I find myself completely being fine when rejecting somebody to hang out, right? Because when I was younger, I'd always be like really sad. I was like, oh, I can't go to this. But when I'm older, I'm just like, oh, I can't hang out with you because I have to do this instead. I don't even feel bad about it, which sucks. And it's like, I just kind of like look back at myself and be like, is this really like, does this really mean anything, to like a healthy, fulfilling life if I'm just constantly working on YouTube, constantly producing like mediocre content? We're getting really deep here, by the way. If I'm constantly producing mediocre content, rejecting like many friend hangout proposals, which I don't even have that many friends now, honestly. I think I've maybe got like a handful. And, it just kind of makes me a little sad. It's like, where is this all going, right? Am I really living like a fulfilling life? And it's especially, kind of sad when I look at all the other YouTubers that have things that I want, right? Now that sounds like pretty bad, but it's back to that envious thing where I watch, channels where a bunch of group of friends are like hanging out and they're all playing video games together. I'm like, oh, I want that. I would love to have that. Where it's like I have, for example, 3 other YouTubers that we're all like friends and we love gaming and we all do gaming videos together. And eventually we make like a group channel together. In the past, I tried to start this with 3 different friend groups, and all 3 friend groups couldn't commit because they were doing other things. And I think that's one of the biggest things is I've never been able to find somebody who has the same level of commitment that I do. And who is also like, around the same age, has similar interests, etc. Because they're all doing their own things. And I've just never been able to find a person who I can do something with, right? Because like there's always been like, that's always been like one of my biggest things. I've always wanted to like create content with another person because I feel like that's always like more fun at times than doing it solo. Because like I'm most of the time doing it solo. And I've collabed with certain creators here and there, like with Tomato Sauce, which a lot of people know from Zeez. I've collabed with a good amount of people from the Fire Emblem community, and they're really, really awesome. I think the Fire Emblem community is definitely the closest I've gotten to like having a real, connection with a lot of these people. But at the same time, I'm not like all in on the Fire Emblem community. Like when I look at these other channels from the Fire Emblem community, they don't have any other channels, right? They're all just all in on Fire Emblem. And it's like, oh man, I'd love to go all in on Fire Emblem. And when they get me like hyped up, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do all this Fire Emblem content, and I'm gonna work so hard at it. And then I'm like, wait, but I actually have to pay for my apartment too, so I have to work on Zeez G2. But at the same time, I need to fulfill my own wishes of wanting to work on other types of content. So I can't only do Zeez G2, so I have to do these other things as well. And it's just like when there's always new shows, new games, like I have to do these things, but that means I also have to do the old ones that have been on the backlog for so long. And it becomes like a cycle of just like having so many things that you want to do, but either don't have the time or skills to do them. And I think that's just kind of what being an adult is. I've come to realize is that you have so many things that you want to do and you just can't do them because every day feels so short, right? I woke up today at like, I actually didn't get that much sleep today, but I woke up super, super early, and I was working on videos, right? I was working on videos, and I wasn't even looking at the time. I wasn't paying attention. I was just working. I got up, I just basically started working like 10 minutes after I woke up. And then next time you know it, it's like 2 p.m. And it was like, that was like 8 hours had gone by. And I was like, what? I've barely done anything, it felt like. I think I released a Fire Emblem video. I watched the Pokemon Presents. I grinded a little bit in my Fire Emblem Heroes account. I worked on the art contest a little bit more. And then I think I ate like lunch. And then it was like already 2 o'clock, and I was like, I've barely done anything. It's like been 8 hours. How did that take 8 hours? But it was like I had to record, then edit, then record, then edit, then edit more, and then do more recording. So it was like it just takes up more time than I think it does. I like think about like a day, and I'm like, oh, I could get this done, I could get that done, I could get that done, and then by the end of the day, it's like I only got half of the things done, so I have to move it all over to the next day, and then all those things move over to the next day. So it's kind of like a constantly, like a constant pile of work that just kind of never ends. And again, that's just literally what being an adult is. And one of the biggest concerns that I actually got recently that's actually been giving me a lot of stress is apparently I didn't do my taxes correctly, at least for the state. I got a letter back from the state saying I didn't do my taxes correctly. And right now, my phone is dead. Like, I don't have a phone number anymore because my account actually got locked. So I'm gonna have to call them using a different phone number, probably like my sister's or something. But my sister's phone dies after like 5 minutes that it's not plugged into a charger. So I'm gonna have to call them while like dangling over my computer on my sister's phone or whatever, and like talk with them for a couple hours to be like, yo, I don't think I owe you this amount of money. Because I already paid it, and I know I paid it because I have my like bank statements or whatever, but they're asking me for basically the same amount I paid earlier now, and it's like, well, where did that other money go? I don't know. It's like a really bad time for that to happen, especially when I'm working on so many different things. But, you know, at the same time, you know, people are always telling me like, don't overwork yourself or whatever, but it's like, I kind of hate this, but I almost enjoy like having a lot on my plate, right? Because it makes me feel alive, I guess, because I have to be doing something. I have to be like trying to achieve something, even if it's something simple, to feel anything. That feels so awkward, but it's like, if I've done this before where I take a day off. I hate taking days off of work, dude. Sometimes I do it because I'm just like, oh, I'm a little overloaded, I'll take a day off. But it's like, what do? I can't play video games, so I have to record them for the channel. I guess I could like read some comics, but like, what if I want to do a video on those comics? So I should start taking notes on the comic, right? You know, it's just like, it's kind of like a never-ending thing when you work in like an entertainment industry, where it's like all these entertainment properties that you use to entertain yourself, it just becomes work again. So it's kind of hard for me to take like a day off when everything that you would do as relaxing, everything that you would do as a not content creator, like if you're not a content creator, let's say you like want to play video games in your off time. I don't do that. I barely play video games in my free time. I think the only one I really play is Smash, because that is something that you can like develop your skills in, but I can't play any game with like plot. For example, I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom in a month. I've been wanting to play the game for so much, but I can't play it in my free time because I haven't been able to record it. I have to record the game and then upload it. And, you know, the people will be like, oh, what if you just don't record it? You know, you don't have to, but it's like something that I want to do, right? And that's the whole thing, is that there are just so many things that I want to do, but I don't have the time to do it. And it just becomes more and more frustrating, I guess, as I just go on. And I just add more to my plate, which I don't even feel like overworked, right? You know, my friend Racecar67 was like, oh, you're such a workaholic, always doing these like projects and whatnot. Like even back in high school, you loved working. And I was like, yeah, but like I just like doing it, right? If I enjoy what I'm doing, then it's not so much like hard, or like I shouldn't say hard, but it's more like it's not. I guess I just get satisfaction from it, I suppose. Obviously, there are projects that are very demotivating and hard to work on. Like I was talking about with the art contest, that has been, I think, mentally and creatively probably like an extremely difficult project to make, just because I know I'm putting together, in YouTube's eyes, of course, an objectively bad video. The art is all really good. The art is all like really, really awesome. Ranges from like, you know, intermediate or like amateur, intermediate, like advanced people. And it's really cool to see like all different levels of like talent and so many people like wanting to show off the stuff that they've created. But at the same time, you know, my commentary on said artworks, especially on a lot of the more basic ones, it's really difficult for me to like say anything about it, especially if I've already like used up everything I had to say by entry 200, and there's 1,000 entries. So it's like so much of it is repetitive, and I know most people are going to click off the video after a few minutes, and it's kind of like, who am I even making this for? I'm not making this for myself. Like, I'm making it for the artists, right? I think at this point I'm just making it for the artists. But that's also why I don't think I can do it again, because even though it's really nice to like give back to all these artists in the community by showing off their art, I think it's just, I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but like the amount of time investment it takes on my end to like put a project together like this, like to come together, is just unfortunately not worth it, right? Because time is the most valuable resource. Like, let's say if it was monetary, you know, I'd be willing to take the cut. I'd be willing to take the cut if it was like finances. If it was anything other than time, I would take it. Like, I would take the cut. But the fact that I just have how much I value my time, and these bigger projects like the art contest that I know I'm putting together like an objectively bad video in YouTube's eyes, like it's going to perform very badly. It might get like 10k views, if that, because Owl House Trend is like completely over, and most people are not going to watch it, so the watch time is going to dip super, super hard. And, you know, there are obviously, like, again, there are some people that are going to watch all of it. You know, those are like the very dedicated people, but, you know, those are, again, a very small few. So when I'm making that big old video, all I can do is just, like, with every passing second of commentary and editing, all I can think of is just, this is a waste of time. This is a waste of time. This is a waste of time. I should be doing other things. I should be building up my skills. I should be making other videos. I should be making good videos, not bad, objectively bad videos in YouTube's eyes. And it's just been like a really, really unfortunate process of doing this whole time. It's just been something that I honestly, it kind of sucks to say, but I never want to do it again. I say that now, you know, maybe in the future I will, but like as of right now, I just can't see myself doing it, at least for like a half a year, because like it's just the time investment, and that is like basically the whole point of me doing this random solo cast. It got really deep, but also this is kind of just who I am. I'm not a very funny person IRL. I have to exaggerate and like kind of like hype myself up to be like, yo, let's go, bro, to even be slightly entertaining, because I feel like my actual personality is just extremely serious and honestly kind of gloomy and depressing. I'm not like a depressed person or anything, but it's just like I always am just a very serious person. Like I know that that's actually what my real, like most genuine level of personality is I'm not the funny man. I'm not the hype man. I'm just a random guy who overthinks things constantly. And that's about it. That's really it. I don't really have any special talents. I don't really have anything that, like, I don't know, I could call my own. I just kind of talk and I do my best. That's all I really got. But, you know, as kind of depressing as that sounds, it's not like entirely a bad thing, right? Because I still do YouTube. I still love it. I still work to improve myself all the time. And, I'm kind of happy with that. You know, as I've grown older, I've become content with the fact that I don't need to be skilled at everything, even if I really, really want to. And, you know, maybe you could say, you know, I'm just coping, skill issue, whatever. You know, it's just like, oh, you've given up trying. It's like, I'm not giving up. I've just learned that, like, no one is going to be a master of everything, right? Like, I watch all these people with, like, so much high level of talent, and then I'm just kind of thinking, like, are they actually good at anything else, though? Like, I was watching this person who's, like, an insanely talented artist, and they were saying, like, oh, yeah, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this, and I was like, that's interesting. It's like they put all their eggs in one basket. Like, they only know how to do art, and even though their art is phenomenal, everything else is, like, you know, mediocre at best, and it's like, okay, you know, that's kind of cool. Now, obviously, when I was saying most of my video game stat points are all just mediocre pretty much throughout the board, it kind of sucks for me because, like, I can never commit to one thing. This is a problem that, honestly, I think actually originated from Boy Scouts, because I loved Boy Scouts. I loved doing all the different things that Boy Scouts had to offer, all the different merit badges, campouts, and whatnot. And because I had so much exposure to so many different things, I just fell in love with everything. I love photography, I love videography, I love art, I love archery, I love swimming, I love sewing, I love so many different things, dude. And there's no, like, one thing that I feel like I could ever put before the other. And that's what's really, really hard when it comes to, like, deciding what I want, like, my future to be, is just where to sink my time. That's really it. I think that's a lot of just like what growing up and being an adult means. Like, where do you want to sink your time? You know, a lot of people, at least my age right now, they're currently looking for like romantic relationships. That's like the biggest thing that a lot of my friends want right now. And that is the furthest thing that I could want. I'm not interested in that like at all. I want to like work at improving myself and just doing things that I like. That's all I really want to do, I guess. And that's just it. I don't know. I kind of I've just been going on a tangent there. There wasn't really like any big point to make. I guess the biggest thing is just like how time is like such a valuable resource and how I really just want to use it to the best of my ability, I guess. I'm not really sure where I was going with this, honestly. I kind of just needed a topic to talk about, and we talked about it the whole time, baby, because I don't have stuff to talk to people about. I end up always talking about this. This is the kind of topics that I get into. See, it's pretty gloomy, right? This is honestly like me at my most core, I guess you could say. Like, I'm not like exaggerating when I do like streams or whatever. Like when I do like Monkey Monday streams, I'm always trying to be like hype, and I'm trying to hype myself up. But like this is just just me sitting here talking into my mic, looking at the audio waves in Audacity, and that's it. I just am pretty boring. Even this whole time, I feel like my my monotone voice has probably gotten many people to click off the video, but I think I'm gonna probably leave it there. I've been talking for around an hour. I don't want to go too long on this one because I still have a lot of other work to do. Like I said, time investment and whatnot. But hey, we're still doing these podcasts every week. So if my friends can't come on and I can't find a guest in time, we'll do another one of these solo casts, and we'll see if we can just keep up these more deeper conversations again, because that's just kind of what I am, what goes through on my head. I have constant internal monologues that are just these thoughts constantly. So being able to say them out loud is kind of interesting. So let me know if you made it to the end. First off, if you made it to the end, comment spork. That way I know you made it to the end. Lots of other YouTubers do that. Ha ha ha. Comment spork and I'll know you watched to the end. But also at the same time, let me know if you thought this was like particularly interesting, because I do want to keep up the weekly podcasts. But if you don't like this type of content, you prefer more of the like lighthearted, like trendy topics, or like, being able to talk with a friend, let me know. Just let me know what your thoughts are. Of course, I think we usually get like an average of like 5 to 10 comments on the podcast. So I read all of them. The comments on the podcast are actually one of my favorite comments to read. So yeah, just let me know what your thoughts are on that. And I guess I'll see you next week. Hopefully I have somebody else I can talk to next week. But yeah, that'll be it. Again, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.